Mr. Levin, let's consider one of Putin's cronies who already has $1 billion or so in crypto that he wants to hide from the governments that are enforcing sanctions on oligarchs. Now, can this oligarch make it harder to trace his money if he hops from one blockchain to another, if he deposits those tokens into a couple of wallets that don't require him to provide identifying information, and if he uses a mixing service that launders his money with other people's money?
Thank you, Senator. So the scenario that you describe, where an oligarch has $1 billion to be able to launder, requires significant amounts of liquidity to be able to obfuscate that amount of money through the use of cryptocurrency. In fact, many times we've been able to identify.
I'm sorry. Let me just remind you of what my question was again. What I'm asking is about the tools that are available. Now, he may have to break it up into multiple pieces of, who knows, $100 million at a crack. But the question I'm asking is, does hopping from one blockchain to another, does depositing tokens in a couple of wallets that don't require him to provide identifying information, and does using a mixing service all make it easier for him to hide his money?
So, Senator, the answer to that question is no, because the chain hopping that occurs, you need to actually provide the tokens, which in a transparent way that allows you to move across blockchains. We've actually got software that allows you to... So you don't think chain
hopping makes it any easier to hide your money? How about depositing tokens in wallets that don't require identifying information?
You can always split the money up into wallets that don't require...
And that would help hide the money. And how about using the mixing service?
That doesn't remove the record of where the money actually sits.
But the question I'm asking is, does it make it harder to track the money?
No, so it doesn't make it harder to track the money, because
using a mixing service, you're telling me, doesn't make it harder to launder money?
The daily liquidity value of mixing services globally is about $30 million.
So you might have to do this day by day?
And we have done extensive work in tracking large sums of money through mixers that have led to the arrests of people and the disruption of their activity.
I'm actually a little surprised by your answer, since you charge a lot of money to untangle and track assets through the system.
Okay, enough. I think that was basically it. I got a lot to say about that. We could talk about that in the when we bring people up on stage. I think it's interesting. So she's being like, obviously the crypto community, the Bitcoin community is coming out like calling her, like she's an idiot. She doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I mean, I thought her questions, made a lot of sense. And honestly, it's interesting, right? Because you see Bitcoiners out there talking about how Bitcoin is being used right now as a tool for people to avoid censorship, and are able to make donations to the Ukrainian government. For example, you could be in Russia, like we were just saying, you can donate money to the Ukrainian government and Putin can't stop you. Nobody can stop you. At the same time, you're seeing it potentially being used as a tool to avoid sanctions, and it theoretically can be used for both of those things. If it works for the first thing, it works for the second. And I'm just seeing hypocrisy there among the Bitcoiners. They're like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is great. It can be used, to make these donations in a censorship resistant way. And then when we talk about avoiding sanctions, oh yeah, no, don't worry. It's not a good tool for that. Like, you can't really have your cake and eat it too, or whatever it is. I forget what the expression is, but and I get the liquidity thing, right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, it would be difficult for a Russian oligarch to use it for purposes of moving $1 billion, of course. But how about in 10, 20, 30 years from now? How about when all the infrastructure exists? And I'm not, obviously I understand why we want to say like it's not good for those purposes, but let's be real, guys. The bigger question is, are we okay with a truly censorship resistant technology for sending transactions existing, especially something like Monero? And are we okay with everything that brings? And then the real argument and discussion is around the philosophy behind that and the ethics. And do we want to live in a world where people can freely transact and move money around, whether it's somebody that's looking to donate to the Ukrainian government who's in need, and we see that as justified in fighting a war because they're being invaded, or somebody using it for a nefarious purpose or to avoid a government sanction. And that needs to be the discussion. I think her questions were legitimate. At the end of the day, it does make it easier. I mean, I don't see how you can deny that. And this guy literally works for a chain analytics company that their bread and butter is in this. That's what they do. They analyze the chain to try to prevent nefarious actions. And crypto is good. It makes these things easier. I know people don't like some people reach out to me. They're like, "Oh, why do you talk about this?" Because it's reality, right? Like, crypto has made ransomware easier, right? But for crypto, it would be very hard to be a successful ransomware company. Could you do it? Sure, but crypto puts it on steroids, and to say otherwise is to deny reality and to deny what crypto can do. To say Bitcoin isn't really good for things because it's not liquid enough is to kind of, all right. So you don't want it eventually to be liquid enough? It's like you gotta. I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of sick of the hypocrisy there, especially among the Bitcoin crowd. It's decide what you guys really want and what you really believe in, and don't pretend it's good for some things and not good for other things. But it's ultimately a tool for freedom. But all right, but it can be just you got to kind of pick a side on that. And I think at the end of the day, what Senator Warren, her questions were legitimate, and these tools do make those things potentially easier to do in some ways. And then you have to ask the further question, but are we still okay with that? The internet makes those things easier to do, but we're obviously all okay with the internet, right? There's no debate there. So that's what the debate needs to become, essentially viewing crypto like the internet itself, a tool that can be used for good and bad, and realizing ultimately there's a lot more good that comes with it than bad.